Hello folks, the Y Guy here again. Welcome to my home on this very cool winter evening. Before we get started this video, give me one of these. Do it like it's a prophecy. Hey, this video just might be worth a thumbs up. Hey. Anyway, for those who are just curious about my wife's condition, it's vastly improved. As soon as she came out of surgery, the tumor that was pressing on her optic nerve, obviously, since the tumor was removed, as soon as she opened her eyes, she could see clearly. Now that's good news. However, it's been quite an uphill battle for the pain issue. And it's still a little bit ongoing, but she's vastly improving. So thank you for your prayers and your concerns, okay? And those who consider prayer energy, thank you for that as well. Anyway, the name of this video is called The Why Guy is a False Teacher. Well, you know, a guy named Nathan Metzger replied, and it's a public, he put it out there in the public domain, so I'm going to share his name. I have no concerns about that. Anyway, he replied on my YouTube channel, quote, "Please be advised, this man is a false teacher," close quote. Well, why he wrote it is because I no longer believe in the practice of blood sacrifice. Simple as that. His accusation was based on his personal opinion versus my own opinion, okay? And the problem I encounter is with how most often is how most Christians, and this guy as well, and they don't consider what they believe as their opinion, but complete truth instead, due to how they interpret Scripture along with years of indoctrination by others who ironically could be false teachers themselves, as he accused me of being. Well, regardless, I find his comment technically impossible since I don't consider myself a teacher, okay, false or otherwise. So let me explain my reasoning this way. I was once a music teacher who used facts, and that's a key word, facts, when explaining music theory. Now, did you catch that? Isn't it interesting how the words fact and theory are not oxymoronic with one another in this case? Well, that's beside the point. Anyway, my point being, other than expressing my specific taste in a particular style of music, there was never a need for conjecture or personal opinion when teaching the mathematical rules that dictated music theory. Follow me? Although you musicians will for sure. Okay, in other words, music adds up and makes complete sense to a learned musician, no matter what instrument they play. So now, in the context of this YouTube comment, please be advised that this man is a false teacher. You know, if I'm not a teacher in the first place, what am I? What am I doing here on YouTube videos? So let's see by comparing the words, okay? The words teacher, philosopher, autodidact, inquisitive, opinionist, and philomath. Or is it philomath? I'm not sure. Well, see if you don't fit into one or more of these categories that I'm going to define. You know, and I'm not going to technically define teacher right now because I already gave a decent enough description of a teacher by using my personal, real life experience as a music teacher. I also realize that to a degree, life requires us all to be teachers, right? From time to time. But that's not what Mr. Metzger derogatory quote meant at all. I realize that. So let's get started. Am I a philosopher? Let's start with that one. I don't think so. Even though I love wisdom. And here's a quote of what philosopher means. Quote, a philosopher is someone who practices philosophy. Really? Or anyway, the term philosopher is still part of the quote. The term philosopher comes from the ancient Greek philosophos, meaning lover of wisdom. And I said, I do love wisdom, okay? Anyway, close quote. However, there's a standard that I use when approaching the topic of wisdom, and it can be found. That standard can be found in James 1:5. Quote, "But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all generously and without reproach." Reproach means disappointment or disapproval. And it continues by saying, "and it will be given to him," close quote. You know, I find this so cool. I just do. How God is generous, as well as not burdening us with expectations. So let's move on to autodidact. Quote, "a self-taught person," close quote. That's the definition of autodidact. Well, on that I say yes and no. Yes, as in, I do what 2 Timothy 2:15 says, quote, study to show yourself approved. And there's a needed comma there that most Bibles leave out. Unto God as a workman that needs not to be ashamed. Close quote. Well, here's a white guy paraphrase of that verse. Study and prove to yourself what is true. Then commit your discoveries unto God as a workman that has no need to be ashamed of what you've studied. Does that make sense? So yes, in this context, I consider myself self-taught. However, from God's perspective, which is the most important perspective of all, I have to say no. I am not a self-taught person because the Spirit of God is the one who offers input and is the true teacher of us all. Unfortunately, most of the time, his offer is ignored and replaced by doctrines of men. How do we know the difference between what the Spirit of God teaches versus doctrines of men? Easy. God never slanders himself. Did you catch that? Yet far too many doctrines of men most certainly do, because God never slanders himself or his competence. Anyway, let's move on to inquisitive. Are you and I inquisitive? Well, I hope so. Quote, inquisitive, tending to ask questions, having a desire to know and learn more, close quote. Yes, like most of us, I fall into this category as well, and so should you. All right? But inquisitiveness can be a can of worms as well. So what do I mean by that? Well, head knowledge, carnal knowledge is worthless unless, and that's a key word, unless. Now get this, it's based on love and complements God's character of love and brings forth the fruit of his Spirit. This is the guideline that I use when I, quote, study to show myself approved unto God, a workman that needs not to be ashamed. Simple as that. Simply being inquisitive for the sake of inquisitiveness is worthless, and it usually only causes an argument. Quote, but avoid foolish controversies and genealogies and strife and disputes about the law, meaning Scripture, for they are unprofitable and worthless. You'll find that in Titus 3:9. So, anyway, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong at all. Exposing the lies and the perversions and mistranslations and insertions made in Scripture, it better defines how we should, quote, study to show ourselves approved. Okay, close quote, rather than simply arguing over Scripture. However, if love is not involved, okay, new set of notes, and I'm coming close to a close. If love is not involved, then whatever you study, even though possibly true, it becomes unprofitable and worthless. Ooh, that cold. That wind is so cold. Woo. Anyway, I sometimes don't abide by it, but I love Mark Twain's quote of, quote, never argue with a fool. Onlookers may not be able to tell the difference. Close quote. I love that. You know what? I sometimes act and look like a fool. How about you? Am I the only one? I don't think so. Now it's time to get into what I consider myself and you as a viewer, okay, of this video, and you as a viewer may identify as well. So I often call myself an opinionist. You've heard me say that on many videos in the past. So what is the definition of opinionist? One who holds an unusual or heretical belief or opinion. And they, in this quote, they call it a sectary. Sectary means religious or political beliefs. That's how they define that. I just kind of copied and pasted, okay? Well, two, a person holding a specific opinion. Really? No, duh, right? Yes, in the same manner as teaching, we all have opinions, and anyone with a differing opinion can easily point their little judgmental finger at someone else and claim heresy. So what does this type of finger pointing and judgment prove? Absolutely nothing, in my opinion. Yuck, yuck. Well, generally speaking, we're all teachers and opinionists, but Philomath is spelled Philomath. That best describes moi. It really does. Quote, a philomath is a lover of learning and studying, close quote. And in closing this video, yes indeedy, I fall into this category, but for what purpose? The answer, to be set free from doctrines of men, and to see others do the same. I want to see everyone set free from doctrines of men. Okay? Well, I'm not ashamed of learning that God is love, and that love wouldn't do even half the crap that most Christians are deceived into believing that he'll do. I'm going to have to leave you hanging by not defining half the crap, okay, in this video. But the dinger is rung, and it's cold out here, and time is up, and I don't want to make this video too long. If you need many examples of doctrines of men crap, then look through my YouTube channel, okay, where I offer my opinion, okay, and my discoveries as a philomath. Again, that's spelled Philomath. And I may not be pronouncing that right, so forgive my ignorance if I am. So if my opinion is bogus, that if you search through my videos and you discover that some of my opinions are bogus, and I've learned something wrong, folks, I totally trust God to correct those errors, instead of trusting someone who proclaims, quote, "Please be advised, this man is a false teacher," close quote. Anyway, did you remember to do that for me? I sure appreciate it if you did. And scroll down to the Show Me More sections and look at those 7 links that I provided. 3 of them are to my books that I've published. And I'll give a hint. Yes, I'm starting a 4th book. Okay, whatever. I'll talk about that in future videos. Let me see here. I already asked you to give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And look me up on Facebook. I have a group called the Y Guy Group. Gee, go figure, huh? And which is a private group. You have to answer 3 questions to join. But I have a public timeline under the avatar name of Jonathan Jones. That's not my real name. But look me up under Jonathan. I meant to spell Jonathan, but it came out Jonathan. Anyway, you'll figure it out. Take a look there, and I'm going inside where it's warm. Thank you for viewing.